Morjesta! Me ollaan varmaan livenä nyt, että tänään ollaan täällä kotistudiolla. Toivottavasti tämä ääni kuuluu ja kuva näkyy. No, kuva näkyy ainakin mulle ja ääni kuuluu mun korviini, mutta toivottavasti teillekin. Et kertokaa, jos ei kuulu. Ja jos kuuluu, niin ei tarvitse sitä kertoa. Nyt näköjään olin unohtanut taas pistää muuteksi ton niin kuin YouTuben, niin siitä heti ensimmäinen tekninen ongelma. Mutta ei se mitään. Tänään ollaan tosiaan kotistudiolla ja mulla on aivan upea vieras täällä. Meillä on niinku vanha linnakundi täällä vaihteeksi taas. Siis ei kotisohvalla vieraana, vaan langan päässä. Ja hän on tehnyt elämässään virheitä. Me kaikki ollaan tehty virheitä. Mutta hei, virheistä voi oppia. Ja jos ei omista virheistä, niin sitten toisten virheistä. Että katsotaan millaisia virheitä tämä kaveri on tehnyt. Et mä en yritä oikeasti olla mikään Dr. Phil tässä. Mulla ei rahkeet riitä siihen. Mutta mä haluan vaan kuunnella tämän kundin tarinan. Ja jos se saa mut ajattelemaan asioita, niin se on hyvä. Ja jos se saa teidät ajattelemaan asioita, niin sekin on hyvä. Silloin tunti ei ole mennyt hukkaan. Mutta tämä tuntihan ei mene hukkaan muutenkaan, koska mun vieraani Mike Ruh on niin upea ihminen, että hänen tarinoitaan kuuntelee vaikka selvinpäin. Mike on meidän vieraana ja hän sai valita tällä kertaa, niin kuin aina vieras saa valita kielen, jolla mennään, niin me mennään englanniksi, joten mä vaihdan nopeasti englantiin. So we are here at my home studio, okay, my home fucking couch, and I have a great guy here visiting me, not in here, but going to be on this live stream from United States of Mind. He's an ex-con. He has made mistakes in his life. Well, haven't we all? But the mistakes are pretty cool because you can actually learn from them. If you don't learn from your own mistakes, you can watch other people making mistakes, and learn from them. And I'm not trying to be Dr. Phil here. No way, sir. I just want to listen to Mike's story, and I want to share it with you guys. And if that story makes me think about things more profoundly, then this hour won't be wasted. And it won't be wasted anyway, because Mike's such a cool guy that it's such a pleasure to hear his voice. And he being the guest of honor got to pick the language we are using tonight, or this morning, this afternoon, depending on your time zone, and we will be using English. Mutta sanotaan nyt muutama sana suomeksi. Täällä on jotain kusipäitä ollut mun linjoilla jossain kohtaa tuolla chatissa niin kuin irvailemassa. Nyt mulla normimodejen lisäksi mulla on ihana Samanta UKsta, joka hoitaa nämä ulkomaankieliset, niin pidetään kiva chatti, että meidän moderaattoritkin vois keskittyä vaan tähän Maikin tarinaan. Ja sananvapauteen täällä on turha vedota, sen te voitte tehdä muuallakin. So like I was saying to my Finnish-speaking viewers, there have been some wankers in my chat lately. Not many of them, but some. So I have told my moderators to, well, take care of business. I have my normal moderators here, and I also have from the ADX Nation, I have the lovely, gorgeous Samantha taking care of you wankers who will try to put some shit in there in foreign language. So there is no freedom of speech here. You don't have to be nasty to anyone. And no First Amendment shit to me. Spare me from that. The only person in this broadcast who has the actual ultimate freedom of speech is Mr. Mike Ruh, who is now joining us. Yeah. Hello, Mikey.
What's up, Carlos?
Not bad. Thank you so much for joining me.
Of course.
How are you today? Did it freeze? Did you freeze? What the fuck happened? This can't be true. Mike, I think you froze. Mikey, can you hear me?
Well, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, neither do
That
I.
was weird. We've been talking for the last half hour.
And I was just telling you, Mike, about these friends of mine who have live streams, and they don't spare like 5 minutes before the show to make sure that everything
Right?
works out. And we were having a laugh, and then after like 2 fucking minutes, this happens to me, or well, it happened to you, but I'm responsible of this. So, how's Michigan today?
Actually, it's warmer than it has been. I know over there, though, your guys' cold is definitely different than ours, but you know.
Well, actually, today it's been pretty good. It's maybe 35, 36 Fahrenheit in here
Yeah,
in Turku.
I think it's supposed to be like 46 today Fahrenheit. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. And some of you people might remember that Mr. Ruh was, I'm just gonna call you Mike, okay?
That's fine. Yeah,
Was on Sunny.
perfect.
Cool. It's easier.
Yep.
I hate calling people Mr. and shit. You were on Sunny's show in November, and I did watch it back then, 3 months ago, but I can't remember it that well, and I did not want to rewatch it now yesterday when you sent me a link. So this is like semi-fresh to me, everything you're saying, because I can't remember that. JM5 Celsius, like +3 Celsius. But anyway, how is your life right now?
Well, with the COVID, everything kind of slowed down as far as work went, and then it's obviously frustrating. Just bill collectors don't stop collecting bills just because of everything going on. So, um, once the weather breaks, I'll be able to actually, get more back out, doing what I do. I own a construction company. So, um, right now it's unless you're doing inside work and honestly, a lot of people have been hit really hard with this whole virus thing. So a lot of people don't have the money to do the things they want to do because obviously any type of money that you have, you are trying to make a living with the limitations that we have right now.
Okay. But in general, if excluding the COVID, your life is good nowadays. You have a lovely wife there. You have a job. Well, you have a
Yeah.
construction company, and you have a flat there, or I don't know if you have a flat or are you in a trailer park or anything.
No,
But
I'm yeah, we
you obviously
own our own home.
have a roof.
Yeah, we own our own home.
You obviously have a roof over your head. But it hasn't always been like that. Like before the show, I asked him how much I can ask from him. Are there any taboos or shit? But you said that you are going to answer the questions openly. So I guess we have an open mic night here. Oh, tough audience. I know that was horrible. But anyway, okay, I'm going to leave the jokes to you. You've been to the prison a couple of times. How old were you when you first got there?
23 was the first one.
Okay, and what happened then?
Um, Back then I was still young and wasn't thinking about how life really was. I had just been fresh out of the military, so I was just on, thinking I could get away with anything. I was previously married and we ran into some financial issues. So I kind of took it upon myself to print some payroll checks off and try to cover all of our bills at the time. And it just caught up to me. It wasn't one of my brightest moments in life, that's for sure.
So you basically just just did it because you didn't happen to have money at that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There was a whole lot of things piling up, and the only way I knew how to get out of it was, well, do what I have to do, and I should have been doing the right thing. But of course, like I said, I was 23, so it makes a big difference. Still
And if I
young
may,
and dumb.
and if I may ask, well, I may ask. You gave me a green light. How much did it was that? Are we talking about hundreds of
Oh no,
dollars, or
we're
are we
talking
talking about
about.
hundreds of thousands?
I started with a couple hundred, and then I turned around and made some bigger ones. It ended up totaling like $18,000.
And your sentence for that was
It was 2.5 to 14 years. But here in Michigan, they have a thing where if you've never been in trouble before, they have this thing called a boot camp where you go for 90 days. And then once you complete the boot camp, you can be released. So within 7 months of that 2-year sentence, they sent me to the boot camp, and then I was out. Because honestly, the prison boot camp was a joke compared to what I went through in the military boot camp. So yeah, it was easy. I mean, it was easy.
but for the mortals, do you think that boot camp would scare the shit out of them?
Some yes, some no, because a lot of people, and this is my opinion, a lot of people that go through that boot camp that get stuck in that boot camp style, they are doing it for the same reason I was doing it, to get out early, I guess is the best way to put it. So you're not taking it seriously.
So
I honestly wish they would have just let me do. I can't say that I wouldn't have done anything that happened later down, which I'll explain later, but I think it would have made me value life and things more had I been laid down. And what I mean laid down is actually done my whole sentence, because when you only go in there
so
for a couple months, you're like, okay, well, I can get away with anything at this point. It's kind of the mentality.
and if did you say that that time you didn't go to the actual jail at all?
No, yeah, I went to prison for 7 months, and I went inside for 7 months, but then they sent
Oh
me to
yeah,
the boot
prison I
camp.
meant.
Yeah, yeah. So they sent me to the boot camp, but then once you go through that, like I said, you're like, okay, well, this was easy. There was nothing to it.
So how was your first experience about this prison? I'm sorry, I get confused with jail and
Oh
prison
no,
because I have been
yeah.
to either one.
Um, honestly, it's for me personally, it was like being back in the military, because you're set up with a routine. You're getting fed every day. You're in a barrack style setup, which is a big area. You got your own little, you just can't go nowhere. So I adapted to it very, very easily. And I think that's where I messed up, because it was still kind of like a fresh routine for me from being in the military, but yet you're not allowed to go to stores. You're not allowed, like I wasn't there. So it wasn't really a learning experience for me at the first time, if that makes sense.
It does, and I was going to ask how it affected your life, but I suppose it didn't do shit with you, if I
No,
may
it
try
didn't.
the
Like, that's why I
language.
said it really didn't do nothing. It was more aggravating because I was gone than anything.
Let's take a time leap backwards. How was your childhood? I mean, is there any excuses why you ended up military or doing those
I,
fraud things?
I'll be 100% honest with you. As a
Please do.
child, I didn't have a bad childhood. My dad was strict, yes. But with me saying that, he was trying to prepare me for what I'm going through now in life. And as a kid, I mean, I can't say we always, but I personally always took it as an attack on me as a child. Like, oh, you don't want me to be this person or blah, blah, blah. But the reality of it is, dad was just trying to prepare me to be a man. And as a child, you don't want to hear that. You want to buck the system. You want to listen to your friends. You got friends that are, their parents don't care about them. They're letting them do whatever. And you're like, well, why can't I do that?
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, reality of it is I didn't have a bad childhood. I had a lot of family that, was very supportive, even when I was when I was being I will say shitty kid, even though I wasn't a shitty kid, but when I was doing dumb things as kids do. But there was nothing in my childhood that would have turned me the way I became at that time. You know what I mean? I never went through things, I should say. My dad always made sure I was taken care of. I had my grandfather, my dad. There was other people that, had my best interest in mind. I just was still a kid and wasn't wanting to hear it.
Okay, so no petty crimes, no
Well,
domestic violence, no nothing.
nothing like that. I had turned 18, and this is what got me into the check fraud kind of thing. I was 18 years old, and I was staying with my best friend and his mom, and I was doing a typical 18-year-old thing where I thought nothing could touch me. I'm going to be this, bad at whatever you want to call it at the time. And I kind of stole a check from her and wrote it out. And, that's what started it. But then I had already signed up for the military at the time, like I said. So with that being said, they kind of waived it and let me go into the military. So I really didn't, it didn't really hurt me as far as being that young when that happened. But other than that, my childhood was, there's nothing that happened in my childhood that would cause me to be the way I became. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. Well, I've been watching these TV shows, and it's usually in your childhood you blame. So, but
Right.
in this
Yeah.
case, it is
No,
not.
no, that was all me. That was all, everything that happened to me throughout my years has always been something I have caused myself.
Cool. After that first sentence of yours, how did it go? You started a family, got a job, or
Got a
did you
job.
already have a
Well,
family waiting
I was
for
in and out of
you?
jobs because I couldn't
Or
find something that, I couldn't find something that I was happy with, I guess is the way to look at it. Um, I always thought there was something bigger and better out there. I was always looking for the fast, easy money. Um, and that's kind of why I got in trouble the way I did. It's because I wasn't responsible enough and mentally to take upon responsibility. And then at that time, I had a couple kids, and I just wasn't willing to grow up.
okay, but then something happened and you had to grow up. That was your second sentence,
Yep.
right?
So in 2008, I'm sorry, let's start this in 2009. So 2009, I had lost my grandfather and my mom, and I started drinking pretty heavily. Let's put it that way. And then one day I just got fed up with it, and I'm like, I'm not going to drink no more. Blah blah blah. So I was doing a construction job. I had come home, or I'm sorry, I left the construction job, stopped at a gas station, grabbed some beer, and was drinking some on the way home. Went and picked up my two boys, got to the house and finished a beer, got back in the truck, and we drove to a video store. On the way back from the video store, I took a detour, I guess is what you would call it,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I hit black ice. When I hit black ice, my truck flipped, um, pinning one of my kids, and later on, I found out that my other child had died in the accident. Um, I wasn't. When the police showed up, they had me do a breathalyzer, and I was under the legal limit. Then they made me do another one, which showed me that I was over the limit. So I asked for a blood test, which they do is they extract the blood from you and then they run it. When they ran the blood test came back that I was under the limit. But they still sent me, because I was still on parole at the time, because I had not paid my restitution, the 18 grand from a long time ago. So my parole had continued for all these years. Well, on parole, you cannot have any alcohol in your system. So they basically sent me back to prison at first on a violation for alcohol in my system. But they had no real reasoning to keep pushing the case, because the only thing they could get me on at the time was a violation. As I'm going through the violation process, they brought up charges later on. They brought up, how do I put this? They brought up charges on me for the accident, but I was fighting it. And once I found out that I was under the limit, I'm like, I mean, I already lost my child. It's not like, I don't condone what happened. I don't sit there and beat myself up, or I shouldn't say beat myself up. I don't like make excuses for what happened, because the reality of it is, I don't care if you have one drink, a sip of a drink, 20 beers, 20 drinks. You should never get in a vehicle and drive, especially when you have your children in the car. That has been my hardest life lesson the last 10 years. Because I literally had to grow up. It was an accident. It was proven it was an accident, but in the same sense, it still was negligent on my part to have my children in the vehicle when it happened. Went through the whole court process. They found me not guilty of OUIL, causing death, which is operating under the influence of liquor. They found me not guilty of that. But then they found me guilty of a manslaughter with a motor vehicle, because they felt they had enough evidence to prove that I was grossly negligent. Which I could sit here, we could sit here and fight back and forth with the courts over what they deem grossly negligent. It just, you're never going to win. The bottom line is, Michael had died, my son. He was 7. So I was dealing with that. She was dealing with that. Plus our other child had hurt his leg. It just, there's a lot of things. The more I talk about this, the more I'm like, the more I talk about this story, the more I'm like, if people would understand, you go out to a restaurant, you have a drink. If you have your family with you, this can happen to anybody. Anybody. Someone could hit you and it'd be the same scenario. So I have stuck with this since I've got out and redone my life. Is, if I've had a sip of alcohol, I do not drive. I just don't. It's not smart.
Yeah, all the Finnish people here who are watching and have driver's license, they do understand what black ice is, and most
I'm
of
sure
them
you.
have probably been slipping there if you have been driving in the winter time. So I'm not trying to like pardon you or anything, but it's not necessarily about the drinks or anything else. But black ice, that can be shit dangerous.
Yeah, you could be stone sober and hit it. I mean, look at the stuff that happened in Texas and America here, when all the 100 car pileup happened, and that was all black ice. It just, I don't want people to think that like I sit here and like, oh, I'm justifying what happened. By no means am I doing that. It still was my fault. regardless. I never should have had my children in that car. You
But
know, and a lot of, you know, and that's why it's so hard for me to talk about, because I don't want someone to look at me and go, well, you're a piece of shit because you did this. And I'm like, I understand. I deal with that every day. I have dealt with that every day. It's not, I don't condone what I did at all. You know, there was a 7-year-old on an innocent 7-year-old that got killed in that accident because of my choices that day. So I don't condone what I did by any means. But
I
what I'm
guess
trying to do is reach out and try to maybe get through to people that the littlest thing like that can change the whole course of your whole life. And maybe not just yours, others too.
I have a stupid quick question.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't recognize the word condone. What does it mean?
Um,
Define that.
it means I'm not trying to justify what I did.
Okay.
Same thing. I
Makes
don't,
sense.
I don't sit here and I'm not like, oh yeah, well, you know, it's because of this is the reason it happened. No, it's because of my bad choices is why that happened. Whether it was black ice or not, I still never should have had them in the vehicle.
And in the end, your child died and
Yes.
you were sent to the big house, right?
Yep. For
In the
10
end,
years.
for 10 years. Is that like a normal sentence in there?
Um, to be honest with you, with that case, it could have went either way. I could have done up to 20.
Wow.
Um, they gave me 9 to 20 or 8 to 20. I'm sorry, but I'd already pretty much done a year prior to waiting and fighting the case and all that. So by the time it was all said and done, it was just under 10, but it might as well have been 10 because I was only 2 months away from it being 10.
Uh, Probably the only thing I remember from that broadcast you and Sony had last year
Mm-hmm.
was that you were both having the same judge in there, and you were kind of thinking that he's not a pretty decent fellow. Well, now this dude is pushing daisies, but what's that all about? Because of the judge or because of the law?
Well,
Why did this happen to you?
I'll be 100%. Um, and this is the other thing that a lot of people don't understand how I can do, but my ex-wife pushed for the case to be what it was, which is fine because I understand why she did it. She was hurt. She felt that I did it. I'm not going to bring her into it, but the point that I'm making is Michigan's kind of has a um, penal system or prison system that it bases upon the counties you get in trouble in, I guess I should say. Um, they have a statute of limitations, which means they have to follow, or they're supposed to follow in between a certain, years or whatever. But they can go out of it, they can go under it. It kind of depends on the judge's discretion. Like initially, when I first went to sentencing, my lawyer came and told me I was only supposed to get 5 years, and he went above and beyond that. Now, I might have had something to do with that because I kind of lost my head when I got found guilty and caused the court scene. Because I just lost my child. It wasn't just, it wasn't just her, it was me too. And I couldn't keep my composure at times. Let's put it that way.
Well, just to bring you international viewers some perspective in this issue, in Imatra a couple of years ago, Imatra city here in Finland, this gentleman, this fuckhead, took 3 kids to his ride with him. He was totally wasted. I mean, it wasn't 1 or 2 beers. He was
Right.
blotto, and he crashed a parked car, and one of those kids died, and he got 5 months probation. So that's how you do it in Finland.
Yeah, the week before my sentencing, there was a lady in one of the towns over from Battle Creek where I caught my case at that was drunk, high, crossed the center line, and killed a family in a van. She got 90 days in jail and 2 years probation. So, like I
But
said, it depends on the county and what, like my past with my previous record helped me get that much time too. Now, if I wouldn't have had no time or no past, it might have been a different story. But, you know, and I know it's going to sound bad coming from somebody that went through it, but that was the wake up call I needed, unfortunately. Because I
uh,
wouldn't be who I am today or who I become if I wouldn't have went through all this.
one of our viewers is actually asking, do people refer to Michigan as prison state?
Yes, 100%. But that's because you can, but the old saying is leave here or come here on vacation and leave on probation.
I
That's, and
shouldn't be laughing. I'm
no, but
sorry.
it's the truth. No, it's the truth though. Anybody that's from Michigan will tell you this. That is like a very well known statement here.
Another viewer of ours, JM5, is saying that Mike looks like a young guy who has whole life to go.
Yeah, prison kept me young. I'm actually 42.
Well, that's cool. But you know, when you were standing in that courtroom and told that you are going to spend next 10 years, next fucking decade behind bars, what was your first reaction to that?
Mind you, I'm still trying to process the whole thing of Michael dying, Um, so my mentality at the time, my first 4 years, I'll be honest, I didn't care whether I made it out of there or not. I purposely was going and doing stuff in prison to make sure I didn't come home because I did
Yeah,
not feel like I was worthy enough anymore. Everything was my fault. My son has died. I've ruined my family's life. I've ruined, there a lot of my family members, and whether they're watching or not, they pretty much shut me out because I was like, that was like the big no to all of them, and they, I've had conversations obviously over the years with them, and I understand why they acted that way. But at that time, that's not what I needed. And
what?
I had a lot of resentment through my 10 years of certain family members in my family because I was like, well, you turned your back on me. But you know what? It wasn't their responsibility to be there for me either. I made the decision, I made the choice, so they felt that it was easier not to deal with me.
But when you heard it, knowing that you are facing a decade in there, why didn't you just put yourself in a yo-yo? I mean, use the news. But what made you go on? What made you think that 10 years is nothing? I'm still gonna be okay with that.
Well, and that's where it comes back to the like my first 4 years being in. I just didn't care. Like I was literally pushing buttons to try to get people to take me out because I was too much of a coward, I guess is the word I would look for, to do it myself. As much because I was destroyed inside. Like literally, I had no feeling. Um, I just was totally a wreck. And then I had a few people that were there through this whole thing has still been there that constantly was like, no, don't, da 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 da. I had an incident where I wrote my dad. The third, I think it was the third or fourth, no, third year I was in. I had wrote my dad and said, I'm just done. I can't do this no more. I can't wake up every day breathing knowing that I cause all this pain to everybody. And within 24 hours, I'm sitting in the freaking the straight jacket and all of a sudden I'm like, what are you guys doing? And then they started making me see somebody and talking to them. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to nobody about this, Um, I literally pushed every button I could with big gang members, doing shady shit, which you don't do in prison, just to push people to try to do something to me. Because like I said, I was too much of a coward to do it myself. Then I end up after my 4th year, I end up riding into a place where I met a couple people. And just one morning I woke up and I'm like, it's time to make something of myself. The only way my other kids are ever going to want anything to do with me is if I make something of myself and change who I was. Because I was a piece of shit as a husband, as a father. I didn't beat my kids or nothing like that. That's not what I'm getting at. I always chose other things to do other than being there with them. And now I regret that because, mind you, I don't have them in my life. But I met these two people, and we got into a group of athletic people, I should say, like all of us that played softball, basketball, stuff like that. It was a really tight knit group. And they started, helping me get through things with sports. Sports and weightlifting really helped me get through a lot of my mental stuff. And that's why we're all still friends today. Sonny, JD, Brian Crannell. There's a bunch of us that are still together and still talk to each other and keep each other in line when we're all doing stupid stuff out here in the world because we're not going to let each other go back to what we just came from.
Well, there's one person in this chat here called Teresa Ruh saying, "I'm so proud of you, Michael."
Yeah, that's
And
my aunt.
I think all our viewers are proud of Michael. I mean, not not making mistakes again, but trying to go on with his life. So Mike, I'm gonna call you Mike anyway, even though Teresa's calling you
I'm
Michael.
used to
That's,
that. I'm
that's
waiting
way
for
too formal
Mikey.
for me.
No, I'm
So
waiting
Mikey
for
boy,
Mikey. That was the other thing.
we are all really really proud of you. And I was going to ask you earlier that uh, the things in life are not exactly the cup of evening tea or afternoon tea. I was going to ask you, how did you make it sane? Did you find religion, or did you join a gang, or were you somebody's bitch? But you answered that question already, and it was through the sports.
Yep, sports and weightlifting. Like I said, I got with a good group of people, and you don't really, because prison. I mean, listen, let's be honest. There's a lot of real pieces of work in there. They're not there because they were nice. You know what I mean? They're not there because they were model citizens. And that's the truth. But the reality of it is, there are people in there that are good. They just made bad decisions. And the group that I ended up getting involved with, here we are today. Like I said, we literally check up on each other every day. We keep each other in check as much as we can. I mean, now we can't be obviously beside each other like we did in there. It's a little different. But we definitely hold each other accountable for the things that we do.
But inside there, you don't necessarily have to join a gang or
Listen,
get gang rape or
all that stuff that you see on TV is like 2% of what really goes on in there.
yeah, that's what Mr. Cleveland told me. But you have to understand that everything I know about prisons in in the United States come from this HBO TV show Oz,
Oz,
and
yep.
then of course Shawshank Redemption, and that's pretty much it.
I mean,
That's
don't get me
pretty much all
wrong.
I know about it.
Sonny even said it in his interview. You know, up in the upper levels, yeah, stuff still happens. Don't get me wrong. I mean, stuff still happens, but to the extent of what they put on TV and the media tries to make it out to be, it's not. I mean, here's an example. This is what my typical day was when I was at that one prison playing sports all the time. Get up, go to work. I worked maintenance. By 1 o'clock, I was out of work. Went and played softball or basketball until 7, 8 o'clock at night. In between times of eating, but and then go to the weight pit. Then my day starts over the next day. That was what the prison at the end of my sentence was like for me.
Yeah, Sammy Girl is saying media can dramatize it. Yeah, I do realize that,
Yes.
but I mean,
But like I said, there's a lot of
is
people
it
out here
like
that don't see that.
It's everything you have said and Sonny has said compared to that is shit. It's like cotton candy. These TV shows are showing you,
Yes.
and it's pure shit that they are actually feeding you. So you confirm what Sonny had to say about that. That it's not TV show, it's reality, and reality is harsh.
My aunt just put a comment in these comments.
Oh yeah. Okay, we're going to read it out loud. Michael lived. This is Michael's, and Michael lived with me in his senior year of high school. We loved him like our own. His honesty is tearing me up. I've never heard him with such honesty. I turned my back on him, crushing me. Well, I think Michael is a different person now, and everybody has regrets in their life. I'm not going to be any kind of Dr. Phil here, but
Why not?
because I
Just
can't
saying.
be Dr. Phil. But like it's kind of interesting to see you two talking about these things here on my chat.
That's
I'm not
because
saying it's bad. I think it's interesting.
that's
I'm glad
because
if this brings you closer. Now you may speak.
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Carl. The reason that this has happened is because her and I have never sat down and talked about everything. If it wasn't for her and my uncle, my senior year, I never would have graduated. I never would have went in the army. I would have just been running the streets because I did something to my dad when I turned 18 years old that I regret to this day. At 18, you could leave your house. I never should have. I should have stayed there because all my dad was trying to do was make me a better man. And I did never accepted that at the time. So I went and I moved out and started doing dumb shit as a teenager until I went crawling back to my dad and he was like, "Look, I can't have you here, blah blah blah. There's reasons I'm not going to get into." But her and my uncle took me in, and to this day I still owe them the world for that.
So now you are out of prison.
Yep. Been out for 3 years. Well, almost three. Well, I'm sorry, 2.5.
And by the way, viewers, we are following the chat as you might have noticed. We are doing this way better than with that broadcast I made with Mr. Sonny von Cleveland because it would have been a waste of time because Sonny was like blah, 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 like a half an hour in a row, and there was no way I could have interrupted him.
That's because
Uh,
Sonny don't shut up.
Based on that laughter on Mike's screen, he knows he knows Sonny.
Very
Yeah,
well.
but it doesn't really matter. I mean, I loved him speaking, and I love this interaction with you guys on the chat and with Mike. I mean, it's not that important who is talking as long as nobody silence. Samantha is claiming that Sonny talks too much. You are so
Yes.
wrong, kitty cat. He he just talks all the words he wants to
You
say.
can't get a
But
word in edgewise with him.
and questions are appreciated if you have anything to ask from Michael.
Yeah,
So
if there's any questions, please ask. I'm an open book. There's nothing I need to hide. I mean,
yeah, but
my life's an open book. I honestly, I would love to do this more. And then
how
my
did
dad,
this?
now my dad does it. My dad is Bob Ruh, by the way. He's the bottom comment.
Okay, Bob is saying, love that you are doing this. I know you are having a hard time doing it, but it is going to help. Yeah, Babru, sir, I am so glad your son got to this show. I mean, if if it helps him, it helps me to get more viewers. No, that was inappropriate.
Listen, if it does, it does. I'm all about helping you, Carlos.
No matter how. But in the end, you after that tenor you served tenor. That's a British word again.
Hey,
How did it all
I
affect
knew it
you?
though. I understood it.
Yeah. So how did this all shit affect you? I mean, are you bitter to the world? Are you bitter to those judges? Are you bitter to those CEOs? Or are you just grateful to be outside?
I'll be 100% with you. I'm not bitter for anybody that ever did anything to me. You know why? Because they made me who I am today. They drove me to be this person because what I used to be is not what I am now. My dad will tell you that I am
Yeah,
nowhere near like I used to be.
yeah,
And I'm not bitter to the COs. I'm not bitter to the judges. I'm not even bitter to my ex because she felt at the time she was doing what she needed to do.
do you think that life has been unfair to you, or did
No,
you deserve all that shit?
I deserved it.
Okay.
Karma's a bitch. I don't care what anybody says. Karma's a bitch. It might be the littlest thing you do that you don't feel at the time you deserved it to happen, but I'm sorry. I mean, yes, did I deserve every okay, you can look at it however you want. The bottom line is everything that I did throughout my childhood, throughout my young adult life, up until now, was all a circle of life that needed to happen to make me who I am today.
Yeah, I do realize that that was kind of provocative question, but that's that's who I
No, but
am.
no, listen, but that's the questions I needed asked because you have to be if you're not honest with yourself, you cannot be honest with the people around you.
And I'm not going to ask you what would you tell to 10-year-old Mike today. And
Hmm.
I'm not going to ask you what you would do differently. I just ask you, after all that shit, I wouldn't really believe in society or in life in general. What has been the most important thing that kept your head up above the surface, like kept you alive, kept you on your feet? My English is so bad that I can't phrase my questions very
I know what you're trying to say, and the bottom
excellent.
and the answer to that question is being better than I ever was before. Becoming who I am today versus how I used to be. That was what drove me the last 5 years of my prison sentence.
When do you think you're going back to the big house?
Never.
That a
No
promise?
way. Absolutely no way I will ever. I know people say, oh, don't say that at Jink. No, I'm telling you right now, I will never put myself in a position to ever go back to that.
I'm glad to hear
Ever.
that. And I guess,
I don't
sorry, I know
everything
all my
today.
viewers
I will
as well.
not do anything I ever did to get back to where I was at then. Never.
I have heard you criticizing the penal system in the US.
it's just, and listen, yes, all of us, because it just, some things aren't fair, but you know what? Life isn't fair. Bottom line.
Is it state related, this
It, it,
unfairness,
it is.
or
I think it is. I really do. And then it's also on case by case basis. Everybody's case is different. You might have the same case as the person sitting next to you, but their situation might be different than you know what I mean? The cases might be the same, but the situation might be different. So you can't judge, and that's where the judge comes in. You can't judge every case the same.
how do you think about this new president's, Mr. Biden's plan to basically empty the prisons?
I really haven't followed, like, one thing, and I know you and I have actually talked about this on Sonny's on his lives before. I don't do the political.
Yeah.
I'm kind of anti-political when it comes to like, because everybody has their views, and listen, I respect everybody's views. You can have, okay, you're wearing, like, to me today, someone could be like, oh, he's wearing a black shirt, I don't like him. That's your opinion.
Okay, there goes the last two 10 questions I had in mind.
Well, no, I'm just saying. I mean, like, well, the reason I don't do the political thing is because there's three things you don't argue about: religion, politics, and money.
No, I was just trying to be funny because I haven't
Right.
gotten any attention from
It's
the
like I have
viewers
nothing.
lately. And Mr. Ruh here, Mr. Robert Ruh, is saying he has become better. The letter he sent me, I knew it was going to try suicide. I then called the warden, and that was why he was put in the white jacket. Okay, by way of helping him get his head on right. Okay, I didn't know that you were
Yeah, yeah,
put to
that was,
straight jacket because your father asked for it.
yeah, because they knew I was self-destructive.
I mean, that's love. I mean, my father loved me, but he never asked anybody to put me on straight jacket. But of course, our lives have been different. So in some things, some moments, that is showing love to your son. And do we have any questions here anymore? We have already been here for an hour, and we have really gotten good things. And basically, tell us something that keeps you positive nowadays.
Nowadays,
Nowadays, yeah,
being able to walk out my front door and deciding whether or not I want to do a job or not.
yeah. What brings positivity to an average Joe's life? If you hadn't been to jail, would you
Um,
take these for granted?
Look at it like this: everybody's situation is different throughout their life. I mean, we all have bad, we all have good, we all have struggles, we all, some of us are better off than others. But reality, um and this is a line from one of my favorite movies, The Crow: it can't rain all the time.
I have heard that thing, but you gotta tell me which movie was it from?
It's from The Crow, the very first Crow movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I actually, when I went to Seattle, I did visit the Lee family grave.
Mhm.
So I love that movie. But are those ghosts from the past still haunting you?
I can't. Yes and
Grace,
no, and I think
has the
that's
lamb stopped screaming?
yeah, I think I will say yes, because it keeps me in the right mindset to keep being and doing what I'm doing right. Because they're always going, the demons are always going to be there. It's just whether or not I choose to even acknowledge them is where, how far you go.
The most important question in this whole conversation is: have you forgiven yourself?
Say that one more time. Sorry.
Have you forgiven yourself of all the things you have done in your life? People may forgive you, God may forgive you, but do you forgive yourself? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's I have to a point. It's still time, obviously, and you know, yes, I have forgiven myself for certain things I have done. Yes, there are still some things that I deal with, but you know, it's a lot easier now to deal with them than what it was before because my mindset is way it's different than it used to be. Let's put it that way. Where before and I'll this is an honest answer right here. I blamed everybody in my life for everything I did. I never ever took responsibility for my actions as a child or as a young adult.
And this message from Samantha comes to all of you viewers and to you as well. Live a life of love and happiness, and you can achieve anything. Everyone has a purpose. It is about finding that purpose. Well said, Samantha.
Very well said.
And I guess those could actually be the last words here. It was so beautifully said that I don't think Mike and I can
I
ever
don't think
top
we can
that.
top that one, can we?
Exactly. So I am going to ask, thank all you viewers for listening to my rally English and joining this broadcast. Thank you for listening to Mike's story. It has been an inspiration to me, and I bet it has been an inspiration to you guys as well. I want to thank my moderators, and I'm going to give let Mike Ruh have the last words of the evening. From me, it's bye.
I appreciate it, Carlos, for having me on the show. I appreciate it for everybody that's tuned in. I know it was in English, so I know there's a lot of people that are, you know, obviously aren't understanding. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Um, and the family members that I know that couldn't make it here that tried, I appreciate it. Love you guys. Um, but again, thank you very much for me being able to unleash this. It's definitely another demon at times that I need to talk about, but I am grateful for Carlos, grateful for the moderators, Sam, you, and Yanni. Thank you very much. Grateful for my family. And like I said, there's just things that the best thing to do is try to keep positive every day, wake up with some kind of positive. And with that, I will be done.